You guys, thanks for coming. I have to admit, when I was at BYU, and literally not that long ago, I didn't get my degree until 2009. So it was just like a couple years ago. And anyway, I remember sitting in these seats and hearing all of the cool stories from these entrepreneurs and just thinking to myself, like, oh man, if that idiot can do it, I can too. So hopefully you guys feel the same way. So I want to incorporate a little bit of kind of the big moments in my life and some of the core principles that I learned from those big moments. Obviously, talking probably more on the entrepreneurship side, even though the most important thing is right here. Dun-da. So I was lucky enough to marry a smoking hot wife, Jordan, and we have 4 kids together, and I'm sure we'll have a couple more. Craziness, right? She's an absolute champion and a super supporter of me being an entrepreneur. And I have to admit, that is one of the biggest things to look for in a spouse. If you know that you're going to be an entrepreneur, making sure that that spouse on whatever side is supportive of that. Because being an entrepreneur, as you guys have probably heard other speakers come in and talk about, it is not as easy as sometimes it looks. I know I'm a writer for Inc. How many of you guys have read the Inc. magazine before? If you haven't, check it out. If you're thinking about being an entrepreneur, you should at least read Inc. magazine here and there. And it gives you stories of the most amazing entrepreneurs and these tech companies that go from zero to billions of dollars in no time. Well, what they forget to tell you is about all the failures that happen in between. And it's interesting that I fell for this too, that I would read all of these stories about how these startup guys would just have this crazy idea and get millions of funding and then all of a sudden have $1 billion company and become a unicorn, which is what they call them now, right? And but you have to learn a lot before you get there in most cases. Some of those guys make it on their first shot, and that's amazing. I didn't, so I want to tell you a little bit about that. But my family, supported by my wife Jordan, my 4 kids, a boy, girl, we planned it perfectly, I know. And this is honestly where the real goals in life is right here. Because every day when I come home, I get to squeeze those little guys and wrestle like crazy, teach them how to ride a bike and to play baseball. I mean, it is so much fun having a family with kids. And so I know some of you guys already have kids, and that's so cool. But anyway, this, again, most important thing, but let's go through some entrepreneurship stuff. Before what I learned about this. One thing that I've learned is that when I'm obedient, and I can do, this is so cool, because I'm at BYU, when I do speeches and talks or whatever in other places, I can't say this stuff really as in depth. But we're here in BYU, we had a prayer. I totally took a picture of the guy praying. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. Because that is just so cool, that you can pray in your classrooms. Man, the world would be a much better place if we could do that in every place we are, or if we did it publicly. But what I've learned is that being obedient to the gospel principles brings blessings. Now, I'm not talking just about little blessings here and there, but we're talking about the flood of blessings. You guys have all heard it. We just had conference. You know it. It's like holding up an umbrella. If you're not being obedient, you seriously have an umbrella over your head, and the blessings are trying to get to you, but they just splash off. But when you're obedient, it's like you shut that umbrella and put it away, and they're just flowing. And the blessings are just unbelievable. You can't even imagine. When you set a goal and you write that down and you think about it and you work hard towards it, most likely you're going to accomplish that goal. There was a life goal that I had when I was here a student at BYU, and I said, I want to become a founder. What that means, Doctor, is that what you go by, Doctor? Professor? Steve. But doctor, right? Steve mentioned that I'm a donor. There's this thing called a founder or an associate founder that you can come and give back to BYU, and you can donate funds. You try and donate more than just funds. You donate time. You donate mentorship to students. You donate energy. And that was a goal. When I was sitting in these seats, I said, I want to do that. I want to be able to go out into the world, make a difference, and hopefully come back and support the university that made it happen for me. And that was something that I put down. Now, that was, I guess a little less than 10 years ago. But that goal has been fulfilled. And I know that the other goals I have laid out, like marrying an amazing wife and having kids, all of those things happen because of obedience, in my opinion. So these are the most important principles. While I was here at BYU, oh, dang it, I didn't mess up my order. Before I got married, though, I served a mission, and I was able to go to Brazil. Who served in Brazil? Woohoo! I was down south with the gauchos, the gauchos, the cowboys of Brazil. And it was so amazing to be able to live in another country, speak a different language, and work extremely hard. The mission taught me a ton. And being on a mission helped me to learn how important communication really was. Because understanding who you're talking to and what their important, life goals were and how I could help with that, the communication aspect of my mission has parlayed into everyday life. So if you're going on a mission soon, or if you've been on a mission, remember these types of things. Obviously, you work your buns off. And so helping to teach those principles, if you want to be an entrepreneur, you have to realize that most people have an 8 to 5 job, right? They go to work at 8, they go home at 5. They don't even have to think about their job when they go home. They can hang out with their family, do their thing. As an entrepreneur, it's a 24-hour, 7 days a week type of job where your brain is always on. You may be home and you may be with your family and spending quality family time, but somehow it's still lingering in your brain, your startup somewhere. So it is a different ball game, but that work ethic is a really cool thing. Reputation is something that I learned too. I was really careful to make sure that I built a good reputation on my mission with the missionaries or the bishops or the people in the communities. And that has also parlayed into entrepreneurship. Entrepreneurship is a relationship game. We'll talk about that in a bit. But reputation plays a huge part into that too. In order to have that success, don't burn bridges, make friends, and build a good reputation with people. Okay? So here's my first startup. I got home from my mission. I didn't have a clue what I was going to do. I didn't know what major I was going to study. I literally took out the list of majors. Do they still have this? I think they have it, like a one-pager that just has like a list of all the majors BYU offers. And I was kind of like, what's that one? Right? What's that one? I just started crossing them all off. I didn't have any idea what I wanted to do. And some of you guys might feel the same way. But I started narrowing down the different majors, and I thought to myself, well, I think I'm a business kind of guy, so maybe I'll do like an MBA, but I don't really know what that means, and so I'll kind of go with it. But I was lucky enough to get invited to join this startup, Seatability. Isn't that a great name? Seatability. This is so funny. We did chairs. Seatability. I was invited. There were 4 other co-founders, and then they brought on 2 other guys, which I was one of the last. And I had just helped to run sales. I got a little bit of sliver of equity into the business, not a big amount. And I invested. I actually went to my parents and got them to give me $5,000 to put into this business. And that was like insane amount of money, right? $5,000 for a poor college student who had like a part-time job trying to figure it out. And I was going to have to pay my parents back plus interest. That was like a risky deal, But I did it because I had no clue what I was doing. Put my money into this company, and I ran with it for 2 years. My co-founders, we flew all over the country, went to all kinds of trade shows, learned how to sell office furniture. And it was random as all get out. We didn't have any idea what we were trying to do. We brought these chairs from Taiwan because 4 of the other founders served their missions in Taiwan. So they saw these cool bungee things and thought, well, the U.S. doesn't have that. So we brought them from Taiwan, learned an amazing mistake that when you get a container load, have you guys seen the semi-trucks or like the boats that have those big containers? Yeah, those are what we ship the chairs in from Taiwan. The co-founder's like, we don't want to pay for a warehouse. Let's just put them in my house. I wish I had a picture of that. The semi-truck pulls up into my buddy's house, who's newlywed. So his wife is the brand, in this little house. We literally stacked chairs from floor to ceiling in his entire house and left just enough room to walk about this much from room to the bathroom into the kitchen. It was hilarious. But we learned that you don't knock doors to sell chairs. That's what we thought you could do, is knock doors and sell chairs to offices. But if you think about it, when you knock on a door, an office, they're probably working and sitting on a chair. So they probably don't need your chair at that exact moment. And so we had to learn all kinds of things about building a business. We were lucky enough to get some traction. Have anybody been over to the NOAAs? There's that Noah's big building over in Lehigh. Anyway, some people have been there. We sold them like 300 chairs. It was like one of our biggest deals. This is their facility. But with Seatability, one of the coolest things were we participated in the BYU competitions. So we took part, we tried to work with the IDEA competition. That's still going on, right? The BYU IDEA competition. We did the Entrepreneur of the Year competition. We took 4th place one year and 3rd place the next. And that just got me hyped up about the idea of entrepreneurship and what I could do. But here's one thing. Take advantage of those competitions. You win free money. We just did the NVC. There were like $15,000 checks being thrown around at people. I mean, geez, it was amazing. So free money helps you to get your startup off the ground too. Here's what I learned. We had to just be incredibly creative with how we ran our business. And so being scrappy is an understatement to what we did. When we would go travel to the trade shows, we'd stay at whoever's house we could. We would eat the crummiest food. I'm at BYU, I got to be careful. The crummiest food possible just to be able to get by because we just didn't have the cash. But we hustled like crazy. And we worked our tails off and really tried to figure out what the heck we were doing. So learning was a key piece. Anyway, just be thinking about these things as you're thinking about your idea. The second venture, I had a couple other jobs in between, but not my own companies. So we'll skip to my next venture. 6 years ago, I was 25 years old. I started LaunchLeads. Now, LaunchLeads is an interesting world. Let me see if I can pull up the video. Because this is, let me see if I can do this, yeah. LaunchLeads. Let's see if it works. If it doesn't, that's okay. I'll tell it to you. But this video is kind of cool. It's right here in Salt Flats. We wanted to do cool things for Utah. We'll give it 5 more seconds. Okay. My real name is Brant, by the way.
What does that mean for you? LaunchLeads fills your sales pipeline with qualified leads and scheduled appointments. In short, they get you in front of the right people at the right time. How did this company come about? One day, a young entrepreneur named Brant Page had a big idea. He put it to the test. And when 3 people crowded around the same desk in his living room, they were off and running. He had found a business solution. There's no need to take my word for it. You should see what their clients have to say about what they can do for you.
Horrible.
Their process and methodology are proven. There is no product or service that is too complex for them to work with. Their team is all American, in-house, and in a business world of less than desirable character, totally committed to representing your company as if you were there in person. Oh, and I should probably mention that the whole process is based on a pay-for-performance model. So they don't win unless you do. That is how confident they are in what they can do for your company. This is LaunchLeads. And what they do is open the door to opportunity for your business.
Dun, dun, dun. So you guys have probably seen that guy because we're all from BYU here. He's been in a ton of Mormon movies. Have you guys seen that guy? Isn't that great? But I wanted to show that video because it tells a little bit of the story of LaunchLeads, where I was literally, my wife and I were married for about a year, if I remember correct. 2 years. We were contemplating having kids at that point. And I had a good, steady job with a good salary. And I was on the sales side, so I was doing sales for people. I had a salary. I was making commission. I was a pretty good sales guy, and so we were making good commission. And I just had this thing that I knew I needed to go do something on my own. I had to try something. And I knew that now was the right time. We didn't have a ton of responsibilities. We did have a mortgage at the time, which is more than most newlyweds. But I just had this idea that if I could build something, I think I would be happier. I just didn't like working for somebody else. And this is where it really came down for me in kind of really diving into this entrepreneurship scene. So I went through this incubator called Junto Partners. Greg Warnock, he's a local venture capitalist. He and Alan Hall, who are both serial entrepreneurs, very successful, they put together this 8-week course. Has anybody heard of the Apprentice TV show with Donald Trump? You're fired, that thing. It was basically that without the TV. And so you competed with all of these other entrepreneurs, and you went through this 8-week rigorous course, and you competed, and you worked as a team, but then you fought against each other, and it was this crazy thing that taught you about entrepreneurship. And it got me so pumped that I went to my wife after the program. I was lucky enough to be selected as one of the winners. And I went to my wife and said, I have to do this. I have to start a business. She said, well, what are you going to do? I don't know what I'm going to do. She's like, well, what do you like? I was like, I guess I like sales. I guess I'm good at it, so I like sales. So I kind of narrowed down that world of what I was going to do to something related to sales. And I said, well, I can't build technology. I don't know anything about tech. So at that time, I took the route of, well, I guess I better do a service. Maybe I can do sales for people. Maybe I can do sales for other people, and they'll pay me to do it. This was the idea. So I went back to my mentors, which is another principle I don't know if we'll have time to talk about today. Can we switch back over? And I went to my mentors and I said, here's my idea. I want to create an outsourced sales company where people will pay me to help them do sales. And the mentors were like, good luck. But sure, try it, why not? Right? I mean, they seriously were patting, kind of giving me a pat on the back, good job. This will be great to watch you fail, right? And but I thought, well, I don't have anything to lose. So I go to my wife and I say, hey, here's the thing. I'm going to probably have to work for free for quite some time to make this work. We didn't have any kids. She was working at the time at a tiny salary. And we decided to tighten our belts and make it work. She was a huge supporter. We lived off of her salary for the first 12 months of me starting LaunchLeads. I did not take a paycheck. Now, we had to sell our car. We had two. We sold one of the cars. We had to not go out to eat as much. We didn't go to movies anymore. I mean, we had to really cut like crazy and just live a more frugal life. And I had made a promise to her because we had seen too many entrepreneurs drag their families through the mud where they had these ideas, these dreams and visions, but they just never came to fruition. And so 5 or 10 years, they drug their family through the mud without having enough financial resources to really take care of their family and be self-reliant like the church teaches. And I promised my wife, I said, okay, let's draw a line in the sand. If I can't make it to this line, I'll quit and go get a job. And that line was, our goal was for her to be at home when we had kids. She wanted that. She wanted to be able to be home and do the mom thing, which was awesome. I'm super supportive. So I said, okay, by the time we have our first child, if I cannot support our family by myself with my own income from my own company, I'll quit and go get a job. I can go sell whatever. I'll go sell ice to Eskimos. Who cares? Right? But I wanted to make sure that line was drawn in the sand. The 12-month mark, we had my son. So he is obviously a light in our lives. And at that moment, my wife quit her job and went home. And I had to suck it up and was lucky enough to barely take enough for us to survive. But I was able to do it. That deadline gave me a hard stop where I knew I had to build a big enough business to support me and my employees, not just my employees at the time. And so I feel like that lesson was a huge thing for me to learn, that making sure you set boundaries if you do choose to be an entrepreneur. And some of you will choose and you will fail. Some of you will choose that and you will succeed. And it's okay either way. You just need to learn from those experiences. And if you do, just draw a line in the sand so you know where to stop. Because not everybody is cut out to be an entrepreneur. And I hate to say that in this type of a classroom. But that's just the truth. And so we need to make sure that you find that edge in life. We started LaunchLeads, started growing every year. We started winning different awards. Here are some of the pictures of the things that were happening. And for 3 years straight, grew every single year. And then all of a sudden, horrific things happened. Some clients came in and they took employees. They cut their contracts. We went from 30 employees down to 6. I spiraled out of control, got into $200,000 of personal debt, me liable for $200,000. Now, by that point, I was 28. I did not have stockpile of savings because I had just barely made enough to survive those 3 years. And I had all my credit cards maxed. My lines of credits were maxed. I owed my landlord $40,000. I owed my payroll company $40,000. I mean, it was insane. I was seriously in the fetal position, crying my eyes out, not having a clue what I was going to do. And that's when I knelt down and prayed. Honestly, I just didn't know where to go. But I knew that if I prayed and if I really asked Heavenly Father for help, according to His will, something would happen. I would fail miserably and go bankrupt, or I'd figure something out. And so I put kind of my life into His hands at that moment and asked for help to guide me to choose the right, to make sure I knew what direction to go. Within the next month, I made 3 business decisions, extreme changes to the business model, where of the clients that we had left, half of them left. Of the ones we had, like we went from here to here, half of those left because of these business decisions, changing the business model, whatnot. And started to hire different people, started to go after different companies. And in a year's time frame, we paid off all of that debt. And we're more profitable than we had ever been before. And I know that that was only because I had help from somebody else. It wasn't just me. Takeaway, the Lord wants you to succeed in whatever you do. Yes, some of us will fail, and we'll fail miserably at that. But a lot of you will be able to succeed, and will all succeed in certain ways. Financially is only one way to succeed in life. Family is another. Helping others is another. There's so many ways to succeed. He helped us to succeed at Launch. The next 3 years led to the most profitable days at Launch. It's allowed me to start this company, Quota Deck, where I'm sporting the t-shirt today. LaunchLeads is currently running. It's still in existence. It's up in Taylorsville, Utah, kind of near Salt Lake. And we still help companies every single day with their sales. And again, huge, huge support from my wife and family, but also the big man upstairs did a lot of that too. So anyway, that's a little bit. Let's look at some takeaways. Some of the things that I learned throughout the process, less on a spiritual note, more on the entrepreneurial note, is this concept of selling before you design and build your product. Now, this is crazy for some people to think about this, right? But if you can sell your idea to someone and say, hey, I'm going to, and in our case at LaunchLeads, I'm going to cold call for your business. Cold calling sucks, right? It's horrible. Everybody hates it. But I knew that if everybody hated it and I did it, somebody would probably pay me for it, right? That was my hypothesis. It worked. And I said, hey, if I can cold call for you, because I know you don't like it, I'm going to generate new opportunity. Would you pay me for that? Now, most of you guys are probably, you already know that. You take your idea to people and you ask them questions. Hey, like, would this be a good idea? Would that be a good idea? But here's the difference. If you can actually get them to say, yeah, that's a great idea, and then ask the key question, okay, that's worth $5,000. Do you have your checkbook? Because let's get going. If you said you love it so much, let's buy it. Let's actually write a check or collect a credit card. Easier these days. And if they're willing to write you that check or collect a credit card, now you know you have an idea worth pursuing. But if you go after a market and just sell them on the idea and everybody gives you the good pat on the back, remember how my mentors did? Yeah, good luck, buddy. We think it's a great idea. That's what everybody's going to say to you because they don't want to be mean. If you come to me today and you say, man, check out my idea, Bubba. It's going to be amazing, change the world. I'd be like, oh, that's a great idea. I have no idea if it's going to succeed or not. But if you say, Bubba, you think it's a great idea, fantastic. I charge people $100 for it. So if you love it, put your money where your mouth is. And then you will find out truly if you have a good idea or not. Does that difference make sense? Okay, so you've probably heard the statistic of that 95% of businesses fail in like the first year. And then like another, I could be totally wrong, and then another 90 some odd percent fail in the next 5 years. I think a lot of that has to do with, and people say it's money, people say it's their partnerships break up, people say whatever. I think a lot of that is because they never did this when they first got started. If they would have sold their product or idea first, collected money, and then went out to design the product and built the product only after, you probably wouldn't have as many failures, would you? Because somebody's already given you money for it. Now, people will still fail because not every idea will continue going, and maybe that one person is the only person in the world that would buy your product, and nobody else would. But I'm just telling you, your chances of success are much greater. And you can do this with software companies. I know some of you guys might be like, well, that's impossible. I got to build it first, build it, and then they will come. That only happens with the Field of Dreams movie here. Build it and they will come does not happen in real life, for the most part. So anyway, sell, design, build. Just key pointers to take away. Let's play another one. Can we go back to the... This is Quota Deck. This just gives you a quick idea of what we're doing.
Let's face it, you hate cold calling almost as much as your prospects. It's painful and inefficient, but we all do it when our network can't get us in the door. In today's collaborative economy, there's a better way to sell. Quota Deck Crowdsourcing
350. You got
Introductions.
4. 350.
Go beyond your own network and bypass the cold calls and emails with personal introductions from people who already know your dream clients. It's simple. Just save your contacts and post an intro request on Quota Deck, targeted by title, industry, and location. And let the network go to work for you. Earn points towards free intros by making introductions for others, or purchase points for a small fee. Quality is paramount, which is why all introductions are double locked in, meaning both you and your potential prospect have expressed interest before the introduction is made. User ratings and reviews help prevent spam and increase the quality of every introduction. Stay top of mind with your prospects and add value with Quota Deck by making introductions that can help build your social capital. Shorten your sales cycle and increase your close ratio by working with personal introductions that are 10 times more likely to close than any kind of cold outreach. Exceed your quota the easy way. Get started with Quota Deck today. Welcome to Crowdsourcing Introductions.
Okay, we can switch it again. Isn't that just so fun? Welcome to Crowdsourcing. I'm just kidding. I love video, as you can tell. For every startup that I ever do, I always think a video is going to be helpful. Not that I would rather sell the company via video, but I think it just brings the visual, the audio, all that stuff comes together well. So Quota Deck came because of a pain that I saw at my last company, LaunchLeads. So just to kind of put this into relation, how to generate ideas for your business. Okay, so think of it in that sense. So LaunchLeads, cold calling company, and remember, everybody hates cold calling, as you saw in the video. But we made 6 million of them at LaunchLeads. Holy, 6 million cold calls. And we only had like a 2% success rate. You'd make 100 cold calls, you get 2 meetings. It was absolutely miserable. My employees, we have some amazing employees, right, at LaunchLeads, because they're literally making 100 cold calls a day and setting up two meetings a day. So we have to do all kinds of crazy stuff in the office to make it fun. We're playing games like every other hour. We're doing lunches, and we're doing all kinds of awards and spiffs and bonuses because it's kind of a hard job at LaunchLeads. But because of that day in and day out grind of LaunchLeads, seeing that companies still wanted this type of a service, they wanted leads, they needed new sales, I knew there had to be a better way, though, that cold calling wasn't going to be the way of the future. So think about this as you're looking at as you're trying to figure out your idea, or you're coming up with one, or you're refining one. Wherever you're working today, or whatever circumstances you're in today, look at the pain points that everyone is facing. At my previous company, LaunchLeads, I knew that there was a huge pain. Cold calling sucks. There's got to be something better, but nothing out there existed. LinkedIn helps because you can kind of add people on LinkedIn. P.S. If you don't have a LinkedIn account, make one like right now or like 5 minutes after the class. Just FYI, you got to have a LinkedIn account if you want to get a job anywhere. That's an overstatement, but you got to have it. It's really, really important. But the gist is, I created Quota Deck's idea, which in reality is a much larger idea, and we'll talk about why they're different, but only because I saw the problem at my previous company. So either if you're doing your own startup, you're probably figuring out problems. If you're at a current job, you're probably seeing problems that could be solved. Usually, entrepreneurs solve problems. That's kind of why we exist. We're problem solvers. And so that's kind of the idea, one of the ways that you can find an idea for your next startup. Is look at problems in the world. Problems in your day-to-day activities, problems in your friends' dated activities, problems here at the university, problems here at work, problems wherever. And you can solve those problems, right? How many of you guys have heard of Uber? Hopefully you studied them a little bit, right? Unbelievable story. But they obviously saw a problem. If you had ever taken a taxi before, you hated it because it was a horrible user experience. They solved that problem, right? Same thing with Airbnb. You guys have heard of Airbnb. People wanted to stay in cheaper and easier places and maybe have like a home feel. So they won. They totally went for it and won. It was a crazy idea, and they did this crowdsourcing thing. You know, we feel like we're in this same mode of crowdsourcing introductions where people can help each other out in this environment and solve this cold calling problem through warm introductions. So anyway, hopefully that gives you an idea of how you can create your own business idea from seeing problems in the world. Does that make sense so far? Okay, before I move on to the next slide, the difference between a really big idea and maybe the other ones that aren't as big is called what I would call a lifestyle business and a growth style business. Have you guys studied this? Is this stuff that you've heard before? Okay, I'll be really brief then because I see a couple heads nodding. Lifestyle businesses is what LaunchLeads is. LaunchLeads is a company that will probably never grow to $100 million in revenue, and it probably won't grow bajillion% a year and receive millions and millions of dollars of venture capital funding. Will it become a $10 and a $20 million business? Absolutely. Totally possible. And it's going to produce great cash flow to have a great lifestyle for me as the owner. Hence the term lifestyle business. So if you're a lawn mowing business, or if you're a window cleaner, or if you're a dentist or an attorney, those are all lifestyle businesses. You can live a phenomenal life as a dentist or an attorney. You can work 3 days a week as an orthodontist and make grundle of money. That's a lifestyle business. Growth, and just so you know, the two different type of growth and lifestyle, they're both great. One is not better than the other. It's just you choose. When you're starting a business, you need to know before you start it, is this a lifestyle business or is this a growth business? And it will help you to kind of know how your way to get around. A growth business typically, not always, but typically has outside funding of some sort from angel investors or venture capitalists, private equity, things like that. And they do that because they know it will grow like this. If they give you money, they own now a percentage of your business typically. They only do that if they think you can go from here all the way up to here and then exit so that they can get their money back and then some. So that's the difference between a growth business and a lifestyle business. Both very, very good options. You just have to choose what's right for you. Some entrepreneurs are phenomenal lifestyle entrepreneurs, and that is fantastic. I mean, you can make millions per year as a lifestyle entrepreneur and just live the life of everything you want. And as a growth entrepreneur, it's maybe a little higher risk, but sometimes it has a higher reward. Not always, but sometimes. Okay, does that make sense? Any questions on lifestyle versus growth? So when you're creating your idea, just determine what is that. Is it a lifestyle or a growth business? It will help you so much, mentally, emotionally. I had the disillusion that Launch was a growth business when it really wasn't. And it took me a few years to realize that. A lot of heartache, hopefully you don't have to go through that I did. Oh, here's product shots. We don't have to do this. Oh, what I was going to do, okay, just with a couple minutes left, I was able to participate in these programs like the NVC, where there was kind of like a business idea competition. This one was run by Google, and anyone can participate. It's not free, but it's like $25 or $50 or something, super cheap. And you can Google it and go online, and they're all over the country. They have them in Provo, they have them in Salt Lake, and then Ogden, I think twice a year, something like that. Startup weekend. You take your idea, you pitch in front of the audience, and 10 companies will be selected from the audience that can be worked on for the next 54 hours. That's it. 54 hours. So you literally are there all night, all day, every day. I mean, just going crazy from an idea to showing some sort of proof of traction and idea. And then they judge you at the end of the 54 hours, and you can be a winner. First, second, third place. We were so lucky that I went there, and we ended up winning with Quota Deck. That was back in the end of February, so like just now, of last year. I took that experience, and then I joined something called Startup Next, another program run by Google, Not a bad one to have backing you up, right? And they do 5 weeks of training. These are all resources for you guys to use. Use it yourself. You can all go through these programs right now. So take your idea and do it, right? Don't hesitate. Just go. Startup Next is a 5-week pre-accelerator program. How many of you guys have heard of Y Combinator or Techstars? Oh, that's so sad. We need to teach these guys. Okay. I'm going to teach it. Pre-accelerator. These accelerator programs, please Google Y Combinator. That's where Airbnb came from. Airbnb. How many of you use Dropbox? They came from one of those too, an accelerator program called Y Combinator. I mean, it's crazy. We were lucky enough to get accepted into the number 2 accelerator program in the world, Techstars. Now, Techstars was based in Boulder, Colorado. Bless my wife, once again, super supportive. I left her with 3 kids, pregnant with our 4th, to live in Boulder for 4 months. That was insane. She got major wife points. We ended up going to Europe for 10 days when I got back. She earned it. But Techstars allowed me to have 4 months of mentorship, of training, and we are talking the top tier of training you could possibly imagine for your startup to figure out the best ways to market, the best ways to go from A to B, the best solution, or just change the company altogether. When we went to Startup Weekend, we had one idea of Quota Deck. When we went through Startup Next, we started learning that maybe that original idea wasn't the best. So we started changing, called a pivot. You guys have heard that? Or iterating on that idea. By the time we got to Techstars, we had changed the business almost full circle. And by the time we left Techstars, it was a completely new business. Okay? So think about this. From March to October, completely new business. I mean, 100% changed. Because we listened to our customers. So we went to sell, and we were selling like crazy. I was collecting dollars and money from people, right? Because that's what I knew how to do. And I'd get some money from people, so I'd say, okay, great, I think that's validated. But I didn't validate it well enough. When we started getting into a lot of these roadblocks and people just weren't willing to do it, I knew there was a problem. So we made some changes based on the feedback we were getting. That allowed us to be flexible, to be moldable, and just know that what the customer is telling us, they might not know the best solution, the end solution, right? Like, who knew that Uber was going to be what Uber is today? I don't think anybody knew that, right? But they listened to their customers, and they learned that if I rode in a taxi, it sucks. So solve that somehow, right? I'm sure other people were creating faster taxis or like cleaner taxis, but they didn't solve the problem like Uber did, right? So they listened to customers. We had to do the same thing with Quota Deck. And it is today 100% different than it was when we started it at Startup Weekend, okay? So just know that that's okay, and that's totally good, and it's healthy to change with how your customers talk to you, okay? People want to see that. Obviously, getting advisors and mentors, I could spend 4 hours just talking about how important this piece is. For students, what I did is I went to the founders group who we give free mentorship. There's even this thing called Take a Student to Lunch. Is that still going? Oh my gosh, you're a student, you get a free lunch. Just go for that. That's what I did. I went out almost twice a week when I was a student at BYU for free lunches with successful entrepreneurs. And I got to get to know them. I got to bounce these business ideas off them. And then when I had my own startup, LaunchLeads, I was able to go back to them and say, hey, remember me? I now have a company and I want you to buy it from me. And I sold them. There's a guy who ran SEO.com, Dave Bascom, BYU grad. He took me to lunch. I pitched him on the idea. 3 months later, he was one of my first paying customers. Not bad, right? So take a cougar to lunch. Use that as a resource. That's still good, right? Founders, is it still? Getmentoring.com. Thank you for clarifying. Getmentoring.com. Leverage that. As a student, you have so much at your fingertips that I can't use anymore. If I call up a company, I can't say, hey, company, I'm calling you because I'm a student and I'm doing research. And I'd love to ask you a few questions. And everybody says, oh, sure, I'd love to help a student out. Now when I say, hey, I'm Bubba and I'm selling you my service, they say, no, thank you. Big difference. So leverage that as a student. You can do so much as a student, okay? We were able to get some investors in the idea, and we were able to continue to go. Here's some things that I learned, though, about building Quota Deck, and I'm still heavily in the process of building Quota Deck. It is by no means a successful venture just yet. But we learned that if you can become an expert at something, that you will be able to win better, faster, bigger. So become an expert. Are you an expert at social media? Are you an expert at statistics? Are you an expert at sales? Are you an expert at marketing or certain types of, whatever it is, become an expert. You will get, even if you don't start your own company, whatever job you take, you will get paid more if you are an expert at whatever that is. Okay? So become an expert. I chose to become an expert in B2B sales, of all things, right? Random. But that's what I did. I narrowed down my focus so that I'm now an expert, and I get to go speak all over the country about B2B sales. And then build companies around it too. The relationship thing we talked about. Man, this is so important. There was a few times as a student, I burned a couple bridges. I shouldn't have done it. I really just was dumb, naive, and I was too immature to realize that I didn't build the relationship I should have. Please take a moment and think about the people you're sitting next to. Okay? In your classes here at BYU, they may be your next co-founder. They may be your next boss, or you may have just hired them. They may be your next investor. You have no idea who their uncle is, or who the person they work for is, or who their mission president was. There's something called relationship arrogance. I attribute that to Corporate Alliance, to local group. It's when we look at somebody and we look at them in the eye and say, I see no value in you. Therefore, I will not build a relationship with you. For whatever reason, right? Just because the hat you're wearing tells me it's Duke and we're not going to be friends. Right? That's so arrogant that I would ever do that. Because I don't know, what's your name? Mike. Mike and I could become best friends. He could be the next co-founder of my next company. So there you go. He could have a trust fund and want to invest in my next company. I have no idea. So please take the moment. I think we're out of time. But please take the time to build relationships. It is so critical that you will see the fruits of your labors over time. And just don't forget to think big. I think we're done. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.